Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I almost forgot to hit record. Thank you to my co-host, Lance LaDuke, for saying, should we record? We were about to just do a complete dry run of this intro, which I'm sure would have gone great. How are you, Lance?
I'm all over it. I'm very detail-oriented this fine day.
You're the professional here in the Pedal Note Media operation. Without you,
then we're in big trouble.
This is and it turns out we are.
Also true.
What an episode we've got in spite of our limitations. Jeffrey Curnow of the Philadelphia Orchestra, Empire Brass. This was awesome. I just love spending time with this gentleman, and I could talk to him for days because of how much he's meant to me. I know the same to you, and he's awesome. He's a treasure.
I am amazed at how much we talked about the Philadelphia Orchestra.
That's right. That's right. I don't even think that we mentioned it. Well, you know that you've done a lot in your career, and we did talk about him being a cartoonist, and of course we spent a lot of time on him being in Empire Brass and heard some Empire stories, which I had not heard before, which is very cool. And not that there are none, but there aren't that many that I haven't heard at this point from the people who are still around, and it's always a treat to get to hear a little bit more. And we talked about the Empire Brass Seminar, which has been talked about by so many guests as being so influential for the current generation of brass players. But yeah, this was really it was great.
You know what's interesting is Rolf Smedvig is one of the most popular trumpet players to make fun of, give a hard time, and say not nice things about. And I wouldn't say that he came off unscathed in this conversation, but Curnow was like really, I think, even-handed about Rolf, and the part that I think gets lost in making fun of all of the just kind of horrific things that came out of his mouth was the stuff that came out of his bell was just so good, and his vision between him and Sam. They were the the Lennon and McCartney of that band. They put that thing on the map. So easy to make fun of him, but Jeff didn't take the bait. There's nothing in it. I mean, like, he could have easily done so and no one would have blamed him, and he took the high road, which there's probably a lesson in there for you and me, but I haven't found it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't apply to. I think a lot of our listeners will get a lot out of what you just shared there, Lance. Yeah. If it applied to me, I'd use that advice, but I'm good. When Rolf Smedvig was on at the top of his game in Empire Brass, what came out of his bell was stunning. Mm-hmm. It was stunning. You would hold your breath at times without realizing that you were holding your breath.
I saw him. I saw that. The first time I saw that band was I was an undergrad, and I was the guy whose forehead he chose to point his bell at. I was like, okay. It was in a master class in the band room, and I just happened to be front and center. And I was like, all right, so that's me.
Yeah, good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Before we get to this awesome conversation with Jeff, I learned a valuable lesson yesterday. I was feeling super lazy. I needed to walk the dog, and I was wearing pajama pants, and my real pants were like a whole floor away in either direction. There was actually some waiting to come out of the dryer, which would have been warm actual pants, or some up in my my bureau a floor up. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna walk the dog, in my pajama pants. Well, I didn't realize that the wind chill was about 15 degrees. And the wind made it feel like I was not wearing any pants whatsoever, and not after, but immediately stepping outside, I thought of the Costanza meme when he screams, "I was swimming!" because it was.
Did you have a lump in your throat?
It was unbelievable. That was. I think that was the universe telling me to not be a lazy ass, and yet I I didn't learn my lesson. I just experienced some actual physical pain for about 4.5 minutes while my dog took care of business. So I'm just passing this lesson along to all of you that if your pants are just a floor away, just take the stairs. Just get your pants. So don't go outside in the middle of winter without pants on. Lance, that was for you. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So what you're saying is pajamas do not provide good outdoor winter protection.
Which is weird, right? I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah, when it's
yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Me neither. Thank you to everyone who has gone to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to support the show. You also get a whole bunch of bonus material, including with Mr. Curnow here, where we spoke about the Anatomicals on Saturday Night Live, and we talked about Norm Macdonald and Bob Saget, and we talked about what's next for Jeff as a cartoonist, and how he feels so lucky about where he is, right now, and an awesome Sam story, which I definitely never heard, when Sam talked his way into getting Empire upgraded to first class because
just him and Jeff,
because Jeff looked desperate. Yeah, he made him look desperate, which is a classic Sam. That will be released 1 week after this, as it is with every artist. And so you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to hear bonus episodes with Maestro Curnow and many others. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without any further ado, let us get to the conversation that we had with trumpet legend Jeffrey Curnow.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content by the Brass Junkies, just click on the like and subscribe button. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the greatest brass players in the world, and Andrew and me.
And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by someone I have looked up to since I was a little kid. I'm not calling him old, but I'm saying that I had his poster up on my wall when I was a little kid, and
scratch and sniff too, right?
And that I'm not young anymore. This is Philadelphia Orchestra's Jeffrey Curnow. Jeff, how are you?
Wonderful. Glad to be on board with you guys.
Very official.
Hanging out today.
Let's just quickly sum up. First, we were booked in December, right, and then my son was homesick from school, so we had to cancel on you, and then we rescheduled, and then there was a little bit of we'll just say it was our error on the time, and then which it wasn't, but then and then we rescheduled again for today. And here we are. So we're actually feeling pretty proud of ourselves that all three of us were able to get on the same Zoom call.
What you're trying to say is I finally figured it out. I figured out how to get here. That's what you're trying to say.
Lance, tell them your technology theory.
Old thing.
Yes, it does.
Oh, that's true. So yeah, I have two universal theories. One is personality type, based on how high or low you play or sing in the music staff. Let's just say you and I are in different arenas, but I would say that you're the exception there, like, because you not to go too far. Well, now we're already this far down. We might as well. But so, the higher you go, the more you tend to be uptight. The lower you tend to play or sing in the staff, the greater chances you'll know where to find beer, and the exception, I think, proves the rules, because you're like super cool for a trumpet player. Is like
I want you to write that down and send it to me. That's going in a cartoon. That's definitely going in a cartoon.
Well, and the other universal theory is technology adoption as it relates to age. So you take your age. I won't out you, but you just take whatever that number is. And I'm 54. And so you put a percentage after the number, and that's the chances of you failing at a new technology.
He's got a brick and mortar calculator there.
I'm a disaster. That's what that says.
Don't you have an abacus?
When is my next cartoon done? And he pulls out a calculator. He's like, oh, it's Wednesday.
Oh God, I'm so glad I'm here.
I can get this kind of abuse at home. Why am I talking to you guys?
I will. I might have shared this tidbit on the Big Sam tribute that we did that you joined us for. But if not, my very first day at the Empire Brass Seminar, I'm 14 years old. and the tubas are at Fiedler, and the trumpets are at Kusevitsky, since you all have the smallest and lightest instruments, so you were the ones that didn't travel anywhere, which made sense to no one except for you. And so, but I'm not bitter. It's fine. And Sam is in the middle of like introducing himself, and and he's chatting with us. And then all of a sudden, from like through the woods and over the tennis court, there comes like all of the trumpets playing a unison B flat at once, and it was like, and Sam just paused, and he waited until the note ended, and he then looked upward, and he said, "God, why did you have to put trumpets in a brass quintet?" And then he continued with his with his introduction. That was my first official studying. I mean, this is 5 minutes into my professional working relationship with J. Samuel Palafian. I thought you should know.
That was Rolf's prayer. God, why did you put 2 trumpets in a brass quintet? I'll tell you the way. Really quickly, I'll tell you the way that went at Kusevitsky, because they would line up all the. Rolf would come down the hill, and he'd say to the trumpets, we're all there, everybody's waiting. He'd say, "All right, trumpets, stand up. I want you to line up on stage, best to worst."
He did not.
I swear to God, it's the first day.
And
there's always one kid that runs up to the front of the line,
right.
But the kids are all kind of looking around. It's okay, everybody get up on stage. And then what you were hearing is he'd have those kids play an E flat major scale.
Okay,
E flat. See if they knew an E flat major scale. 2 octaves. So they'd all have B flat trumpets, and they'd start playing this E flat major scale. And here's the quarter note. By the time they get to like F at the top of the staff, I mean, hardly anybody's playing. There's maybe one guy hanging on.
This is like Hunger Games. This is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. It is just like, it's crazy. And I'd sit there and I'd look at Rolf doing this, understanding that everyone on stage now thought that that's how Rolf warmed up every day. He did a 2 octave E flat major scale. And it's like, okay. That kind of established the whole hierarchy of things. And now we can learn. So it was crazy. It was absolutely insane. But that's what you were hearing. Maybe we got to the B flat, and that's when the sound started carrying down.
Sam felt intruded on. Yeah, like he was like, he kind of had that. And I grew up to be in a full-time traveling the world brass quintet, and so I get it. But he kind of had this like look on his face, like, I don't even get like one little shed to myself here. I just need like just one little tiny shed without those people. But yeah, that was something. Boy, I cannot even begin to tell you the impact that the Empire Brass Seminar had on me as a human and as a musician. Getting to watch you all rehearse at the level that you did, and got exposed to a lot of things, like a lot of interpersonal dynamics. And, these were like long rehearsals. Like, even if you wanted to be on your best behavior, like by by the hour 2 of a rehearsal in week 4 in front of the same kids, it's not exactly like, okay, we're playing for these kids for 20 minutes and then we're going to the next school. Just like, we'll save it for the parking lot, but seeing you working at that kind of a level, and like the level of detail that was being addressed, and it just forced my ears to just dial in more and more and more, and then to see it getting worked on, and then to get to experience all of you as coaches. And I have them somewhere. I tried to find it before we hopped on so that I could read you. I actually have comment sheets from performance classes from like 30 plus years ago. So I've got at least one, wow. I think 2 different comment sheets from you. Specifically, and just the level of coaching. And can you tell us what it was like to what that was like for you? Because it was a unique situation like that you had set up there, with the ability to do so much rehearsing and so much conversing with so many players that have gone on to do such amazing things that came through that program.
Well, yeah, it was the whole program was brilliantly designed, because we had every summer we put together a CD. We were with Telarc and either Telarc or EMI, and so we would be working really day and night on putting together arrangements. And it's usually, we had 3 days to do a CD. So we'd have a few weeks to put these arrangements together, literally piecing them together in Rolf's barn. Sam was a great arranger. He did a lot of them, but a lot of it was just sitting with scores, individually putting things together and trying to make these arrangements work, but, hit or miss. But we were able to bring that to the students. We were able to sit down in front of the students and show everyone how to do this, how chamber music is put together. And honestly, I would sit there sometimes and think, man, the kids are being really cool, because this is pretty tedious. And it was. We would sit down and work on intonation things. We would work on, sometimes we're changing parts and we're rewriting our parts. And other times, we would play through a piece several times. And when I first got there, I was like, well, is this really an education for the kids? But as time went on, I suddenly realized it really was, because if you go out and you're in a brass quintet, you understand how this all works. It's not just sit down and play. It's sit down and work and piece things together and make sure that balance is right and intonation is right and stop and do things over and over and over again. And the group was really great at that, at conveying that in a setting, because we'd stop and be able to talk to the kids every once in a while and say, this is what's happening right now. This is what we're going to try to work out, this situation between, Rolf and Scott, or Sam and Scott, or, anything with Rolf was a touchy situation. But and the other guy standing in the corner over there, that's Jeff. He doesn't say much.
The reason I want you to continue in just a second, because there was one open rehearsal that I will remember forever, where I don't know what the tune was, but Rolf, in his defense, was trying to play something that no one should be trying to play on the piccolo trumpet, and get this is like a 2-hour rehearsal, right? This is not a dig, right? It just, whatever came out of his bell was particularly not up to Rolf Smedvig standards, and but this was one of those where he yanked the horn off his face and lashed out at Scott before the rest of you had even stopped playing. I mean, it was and he barked at Scott and he said, "Scott, that I've told this story to Scott on this podcast, by the way. I was like, Scott, he's like, Scott, that A that you were holding, it's like, that's like the flattest note I have ever heard in my whole bleeping life. He's like, I just have one question for you. If I hadn't stopped and pointed that out, would you have held that note that flat forever? And Scott just went, good, probably. It was like this, and that was one of the few times when I saw Sam physically hide behind his tuba, and I immediately had eyes on you. You looked like the most focused. You looked like a heart surgeon focused on not making any facial expression happening of any kind at all. Right. And I think Eric actually might have just kind of calmly walked around the corner, because he was over on the end. And yeah, it was something, and we were all silent out on that lawn, and then things went back. So anyway, yeah, that was.
It's interesting because that dynamic was. I mean, that's part of the whole thing when you're living together with 5 people, and it's kind of like a reality TV show in a way that you're eventually going to fight with each other. You're eventually going to get impatient, and Rolf, how everyone knows, Rolf was the kingpin. Sam called him the boss monkey, but we would, but the whole, in some ways, because I've worked now in quintets here in the orchestra and after that, when you've got a lot of cooks stirring the pot, things really slow down. And when you have one guy or 1 or 2 people who are able to say, no, this is my concept and this is what we're going to do. And that's basically what Rolf did. Sam was on board with that completely. They had the same idea about the blow of the group, the approach to the brass music that we were going to have. And you were either on board with that or not. But normally I wouldn't, say anything. And it's just like, hey, can I, I'd say something to Marty, can we do this thing together? Because I want to make sure that we're on the same. But most of the direction came from either Rolf or Sam. And as you remember, so in some ways that was good because it kept things moving. It's like having a conductor in front of an orchestra and you don't have 109 people trying to figure out how to play Dvorak 9. It's one guy's idea, and let's just do this. So I mean,
especially when the tuba players start speaking up, like right. I believe my 14 notes should go like this. Thank you.
So I mean, and being on both sides of that, where there's a chamber music situation where everybody gets a say, which, like I said, can slow things down. So there were some advantages to that, although it was maddening sometimes. It was really tough, and we've had everyone had it out with each other at one point, but we were all there. We wanted to get it done. We knew something great was happening, and we all wanted to make a great CD. And when the mics went on, that's when everyone had to shut up and play. And you either knew your part or you didn't. You were either prepared or you weren't. And the only person talking was Bob Woods in the booth at Telarc, just saying, well, that didn't work, or this did work, or that's great. We got to do this and that. So it wasn't that way all the time, but it really did help focus the group.
Did you watch the Beatles thing, the Get Back?
Yes.
I many times in watching them just in the room, I was taken back to, I mean, musical equality notwithstanding, like just being in rehearsal with the quintet, with Boston Brass, is just or not even that group, but that catalyst or that crucible that you're in, and just when the temperature starts to rise a little bit and everybody's a little tired and a little cranky, man, that was like, it took me back in not all the best ways.
And there's so few of us. It really played. I mean, there are a lot of brass quintets out there, but what we were doing is like, boom, high velocity out on the road. Yeah. This is what you're doing for a living, putting out recording CDs, blah, 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 all that. And when I saw the Beatles documentary, I thought the same thing. I completely understood what was happening there.
You just you could just like,
yep.
I liked how when George Harrison quit, that he was just calmly, he was like, yeah, I'm not coming back.
See you at the pub.
They're like, you mean like you're stepping? He's like, no, like I'm not in the Beatles anymore. And he just like calmly, see you at the pub, just calmly walked out. I was like, yeah, there it is. It's either like screaming and there's like, pots and pans flying, or it's just like, have a good one. Like, yeah.
And the greatest part about that is watching them on the roof when they're finally there and seeing the fun.
Yeah.
Seeing how much fun they were having being there, actually performing for people. And that's what it was all about. You get out on stage and you play concerts, and this is a means to all the work that we put into. This is like, boom, the end to all the work we were putting into. And that was a great feeling when you had an audience stand up at the end and you knew you were doing it better than anybody else, or knew you were doing it at such a high level that you just wanted to stick with it. But yeah, the Beatles documentary brought back a lot of memories for me too.
Yeah. It was kind of
just the hometown concerts that you would play at the Sci Center at Boston University, where you were all teaching, which was primarily your students and like the same, brass players. I mean, it was like the equivalent of like a family and friends, show.
Yeah.
But there was like an absolute like rock concert vibe to every one of those. I went to a whole bunch of them, but it was just like there was an electricity, even though the Sci Center would not even be that full. I mean, it wasn't packed out, but it was just like, because you were there a lot. But man, there was just an energy. There was just like this collective. Everyone in the audience was there to see whatever you all had come up with next, and we're ready to see you do it in person.
And I believe that was because of the way we arranged the pieces that we chose to play. And that all kind of came from Rolf. Rolf had this idea that we're going to go out and we're going to level this place. And that's what we did from the first tune through to the end. It was just, we're going to impress people with what we can do. We're going to do something that no one else has ever done. And we're going to just blast them out of their seats. So we were bell front, walk out there on stage. You had to look a certain way, carry your horn a certain way, and boom. When the concert started, people got quiet. And that energy really came from Rolf, because every quintet I was in before, walk out on stage, you kind of huddle in a little arc, and you're kind of in your own little world, and you start with something like, one of those contrapunctus.
Right.
Just because we want to warm up.
Yeah.
We don't want to slam the audience. We'd come out with, Canzone Burger Mask and just boom, 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 and just immediately right out of the starting gate. So yeah, there was an energy there, definitely.
I want to talk to you about the impact of the seminar, because it's come up a number of times on the show, and I think it's really important. But before we do that, I wanted to let you know that we want to send out a very special thanks to the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
That was a smooth segue, man.
Thank you. We'd like to encourage you to click on the link in the show notes where you'll be taken to the site where you can find out about all the wonderful professors you can study with and the great ensembles that you can perform with at Duquesne University in the Mary Papert School of Music. So please, right now, hit pause and go visit that website. And very special thanks to Jim, don't call me Ringo Nova, for making it possible.
What just happened?
I'm not sure.
How do I...
That's some FM happening right
That's right.
there, baby. That's
Right.
that
Robert
was
J.
beautiful.
Lertzema over here. Yeah.
Hi.
Lance, do you know who Robert J. Lertzema was?
Negative.
He was on WGBH in Boston. He was a classical DJ who spoke. He was on WBUR. He spoke so slowly. I mean like quarter note equals 15. Like so slowly that you swear that half the band is going to get lost by the time you get to beat 2. And it's like, but he was he was an institution in Boston on Boston radio growing up. So yeah. Anyway,
Remember when we did
Very
when Jeff and Jose and I did a classical radio station interview in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and the host was this lady with a British accent, and that was Johann Sebastian Bach, and now we have 3 members of the Boston Brass Quintet who will be performing with the Williamsport. And so we record this thing, and she starts interviewing us. I have to have told this on the show. I can't remember. But anyway, so she starts by asking Jeff, can you tell us a little about yourself? I'm from here. I went to school at this place. I started blah, 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 blah. Hi. And then Jose Sabaha. Hi, I'm Jose Sabaha. I grew up here. I went to it's just like whatever. And so then it comes to me, and I said, hi, I'm Lance LaDuke. And before I was in Boston Brass, I played with the River City Brass Band in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And before that, I was an astronaut, and I invented ping pong balls. And the Jeff and Jose, are like,
Jeff is like clenched.
he's like, and the lady's like, oh, okay. And so then, she kind of tried to right the ship, and then later on, so then before she has a chance, I go, yeah, and a lot of people don't realize what a big impact NASA had in the development of ping pong balls, and like tables and paddles had been involved, but we hadn't quite figured out what the right, so it was proud to be a part. And so I'm just like gone. So then later, about, 6 minutes later, I'm already convinced this is never, it was a pre-record for the next day, which was the day of the concert. I was like, well, they're never going to air this. But so she goes, and Lance, in your dream of becoming an astronaut. And I was like, no, I was an astronaut. Okay, yes, well. And so I don't know what's going to happen. But finally, we're done with the interview. And she hit stop. And she was like, that was delightful. You boys are so entertaining and fun. And okay, this is never. And then we were all hovered around like the clock radio in somebody's room the next day. I had the most delightful chat with 3 of the members of, and they played the whole thing with the astronaut and the ping pong balls and all. So
I'm kind of glad to hear you say that, because we were on the road one time. I forget where we were. I think we were in Minnesota. And Rolf called me up about 8 a.m., got me up. He said, you're going to a public radio station and you're going to do an interview for me. I said, what? Really? He said, yeah. I said, well, what's the interview pertain to? It's called Desert Island Discs. Come over to my room. I've got a bunch of CDs for you. Well, I go over there and knock on his door. I mean, he just opens up the door. He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He just hands me all our CDs. Here, just play these. Boom, shuts the door. So they pick me up, hello, are you Rolf? No, I'm Jeff. I'm the other trumpet. So I had no
last
idea.
chair trumpet.
I had no idea what Desert Island Discs was, and I sat there in this room with this woman. I said, "Here's all our CDs, and what would you like to talk about?" She said, "This is Desert Island Discs. Do you know what this is?" I said, Here's some discs for your Desert Island." She said, No. I want to know what you would want to be, what discs you would take with you if you were stranded on a desert island for the rest of your life."
Did you say your own discs? I just want to listen to myself play trumpet.
I certainly wouldn't have any of these. So this eliminates this whole pile. So I said, and I thought, okay, I got to start doing some serious BS here. I said, "Do you have Guns N' Roses here?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "See if you have Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses."
There we go.
That's the first disc I would take with me.
Yeah.
Oh, my hair was down there, it looked like and we went. The first thing they played in the room was "Welcome to the Jungle."
Yes.
And then she comes on and says, "That was Welcome to the Jungle." Now that's something you don't hear very much of here on the station, but it was the first Desert Island disc of our. Oh my
By
God!
Guns and Roses.
I guess I had some Miles Davis on there. I had the. Like this tune from this disc, to be played. So it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. The longest 2 hours of my life.
Oh, man.
I like the fact that that Axl Rose would have been screaming, "I'm gonna watch you bleed!" in the opening
Morning drive.
Too.
Yeah.
That's
Hi. Good morning. Hi.
Oh goodness. So Lance, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm the one that sidetracked us, which is weird because I never do that.
It's okay. So, it's clear that the seminar had a long-lasting impact on the industry of brass quintet playing, for lack of a better way to describe it. We've gone on at great length about how influential your band and the Canadians were in terms of our thinking. Did you have a sense at the time how impactful, how you were Johnny Appleseeding all these brass quintets out far and wide, or did it kind of hit you later, or where are you about that now? I mean, because of that event, countless groups have been formed.
It was at the time, it seemed a little bit like a factory and just something we were doing in order to be a part of Boston University when I first joined, because we were just cranking out these groups, and we'd do the summer seminar, and people would be coming through, and we'd have one group and another group, and I'd be going between groups, and we're just we're trying to spread the word about chamber music, brass chamber music, but it was a little different than that, because as time went on, I suddenly realized I'm teaching these kids about intonation. They're not getting that in their high school band rooms. I'm teaching these kids about blending. I'm teaching these kids about sound production. I'm teaching these kids how to prepare a really difficult program and make a downbeat, which is something they aren't getting in high school or even college if you're sitting in an orchestra. It's just not the same working with people. And that even today, if I'm coaching a group at Curtis, I'll tell them, I'll say, you're going to learn more here than you will anywhere else about your instrument and how to blend and how to play, because this is where it all really happens, in this small setting and just between a few people. But when it really hit me was when I was in Dallas, and in walks Jen Montone as our associate horn player. And it was like, wow, I haven't seen you in about 20 years. She said, yeah, last time I saw her was at the Empire Brass Seminar. And I suddenly realized as time went on, people were coming back and saying, hey, do you remember me? Was in the Empire Brass Seminar. And how's my internet connection here?
It was you just had one pause where you said, hey, remember me? And then it paused just long enough that we got to laugh, and then you kept going, which made it extra awkward. So
okay, well, anyway, so I'm suddenly realizing how impactful that was and what we were doing. And and how many people we reached, how many kids we reached, how many musicians we reached. And as they went on, they come back and say, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot because it was high intensity when we were there. We really expected a lot of the kids, and it was boot camp. So I'm realizing that now. It was important to do.
Those, the coachings, the way that it was set up was that each quintet had a 2.5-hour rehearsal in the morning, and then there was lunch, and then Empire Brass would have a 2-hour rehearsal, and then another 2.5-hour rehearsal for each of the quintets. And in the morning, we would each get coached by one of the members of Empire Brass, and then in the afternoon, we would get coached by one of the members of Atlantic Brass. So we were getting 5 hours of coaching Monday through Thursday. So 20 hours of coaching on one program. But we also did a different, and then Friday was performance class, and then the weekend was to recharge, and then it was all like a giant charge forward again. But each one of the 5 of you had a completely different vibe to it, and you were all, like with Rolf, it was a little bit intimidating just because you just didn't quite know what version of him was going to show up necessarily. And the rest of you were also intense, but but you and Scott were very different, and Eric and Sam, and you all kind of focused on different things and different aspects, and you each did regular deep dives on different subjects, not intentionally, not premeditated, but it ended up being just it was like an immersion program. It was like brass quintet immersion is basically what it was. It was so 80 hours of coaching in one 4-week seminar, plus all those hours of seeing Empire do it right in front of us, plus 4 high profile, just high pressure rather, concerts in front of everybody in the firing squad, which after that, every member of Empire would get up and give comments to the entire room, in front of everybody. It was just, it was amazing. Oh,
yeah, and the performance classes were so important that you get out there and have to play it, because at the end of the week, you're going to have to put this show on. And it's not like we're just going to learn these tunes, you're going to walk away from them. You got to come out there and bow. You got to talk to the audience. You got to play through these tunes proficiently, and we're going to make a tape of it, so you have to listen to it. So it's one of these things and we produce a tape for every group. So you could listen, and so it was high intensity, but I saw kids improve within 2 or 3 weeks. They were, they made 150, 200% improvement in their playing, and had a completely different understanding about what it would be to be a professional musician, and how much it's going to take, how much practice, how much discipline, and how rigorous your living. It's a lifestyle. You have to have that lifestyle. And then they better understood that when they left, more so than I think they would if they were sitting in the BUTI orchestra, or, because you're just kind of sitting there, and it's not the same thing.
I did both programs, and they were both really valuable, although I'm glad I did the Empire Brass Seminar for 2 summers before I did the orchestra twice, just because it was very, like you just said, it was very hands-on, and I was then able to take all of that intense attention to detail and then apply it to orchestral playing still while in high school. So, but I'm glad that I did it in the order that I did it in.
And that's the perfect phrase: intense attention to detail. That's perfectly describes what you have to be if you're in a chamber music group, because it's not the same as sitting in an orchestra. You have to iron out a lot of things that you're not even thinking about when you're blasting through Mahler or Bruckner or Beethoven or anything else. It's really a different kind of musical setup.
You're uniquely suited to have a perspective on. You've been coaching quintets for a very long time at a very high level, and so have you noticed differences or an evolution in terms of the kinds of how you're coaching student or groups now versus then, or is it basically it is how it was, or how has brass quintet playing evolved from the perspective of you as a coach over the decades that you've been doing it?
As a coach, I'm doing things exactly the same as I did when I was coaching at the EBQ, and I'm tough. Some of my colleagues will let some things go, but they don't. It's just not the same. When that intensity has never left me.
Hmm.
That need, like you said, the attention to detail, but also the fact that you want a dynamic performance. You just don't want the performance to lie there. Do something with the line. Do something with the piece. Make sure that you grab the audience's attention and you take them on this roller coaster ride. And so a lot of it, I will beat the kids to death about musicianship and making sure that they get their musical ideas across the footlights, which was a big deal with the Empire Brass. You had to reach the back of the hall with your musical ideas. So there was an exaggeration on stage that it's hard to explain until you have someone there yelling at you. You got to play louder. You got to play softer. You've got to move the line more here. You've got to make this crescendo bigger. I'm not getting it back here where I'm sitting. And if you want to convey this musical idea, if you want to grab the audience's attention, if you want to pull on the heartstrings of the people that are watching you so that they walk out of here and say, that was incredible. I mean, that was something, that was a real event. Or they can walk out there and say, well, these talented kids. Mm-hmm. No, you want to reach them on another level. And that means you have to do it this way. So that I've carried from my Empire Brass days. And I won't change that because that's the way I hear it now. Mm-hmm. That's the way my ear is when it comes to brass quintets. And I'll hear brass quintets and say,
yeah,
it's not quite, that's not, let's do it this way. I wish they'd done this. I wish they'd, arranged the tune this way. And just to make that, that message that you're sending to the audience even more poignant or more delightful or more fun, or making sure that your musical ideas get across the footlights.
It's a stage makeup thing, right? I mean, a stage actor looks insane if you're just talking to them until you get out in the audience, and then you go, okay, well, that's why that looks like.
Yeah, I'll tell kids it's like going to see a movie, and if you're an actor in a movie, you can. The screen is gigantic. You don't have to do anything. But if you're in a, when it's that kind of broad aspect of it, that's what it is. It's a broader aspect of performing. And even in an orchestra, it's kind of that way because we're all the way in the back, mm-hmm. and you've got to just really enunciate your instrument, make sure the diction, mm-hmm. for lack of a better term, is working so that what you're saying gets, out to the audience. But, that's the thing. That's a universal problem with every group that I see at the beginning, because they just kind of sit there and they play like they're sitting in practice rooms and there's no one there listening. And it's like, okay, now we're going to have people listening. This is your practice room, this gigantic hall. Let's fill this hall with sound. And then that changes the way they practice. Mm-hmm. And they get there and I said, don't ever think that you're going to perform in a practice room. You're not. You're going to perform in a hall. So practice that way. Yes. And that whole message, is delivered through, a quintet coaching.
Yeah.
The thing that Empire always did, and that I learned from you, directly from your words, but also from you modeling it over and over again, is that you always played with a point of view. You always played with an opinion. And, that I don't care if you're hosting a podcast, if all you do is interview people, but you don't really have a point of view, then people are going to be bored, because there's lots of places that you can hear famous people be interviewed. We like to keep things loose here. Some people wish we were more serious. Some people wish that we would just get a list of 10 questions and ask you alternate and then just shut up and not talk. Our point of view here is that we're hanging out with some of the best musicians in the world, and we just kind of, shoot the whatever, But the point is, and that's not good, it's not bad, it's just what ours is. And the Empire thing, you don't have to have what did you say, your vision of walking on stage and leveling the place, right? Which shaped the entire artistic trajectory of Empire. That's not the only possible way to walk on stage as a quintet, but boy, did you have an opinion. And right. That's what you forced all of us kids to have in real time which was probably the biggest gift that you left me. Which, yes, I left being able to play higher and softer and and faster and all of that stuff. But it was the opinion thing, which you were good at teaching and good at modeling. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. but when you say that, no, all quintets don't have to be that way. Now, Menozel, brilliant group. And to some extent, they've taken the brass quintet, the brass ensemble into a completely different direction. The next step, perhaps, who knows? But they walk out on stage not with the idea they're going to level the audience. They're going to intrigue the audience. They're going to make the audience think. They're going to send a completely different message. If they're not going to go out there and play, Canzona Bergamasca and try to impress everybody. They're going to go out there and have you thinking, have you laughing, giggling, moving you in these kind of different directions. But you're right. You have to have an opinion. You always have to have an opinion. I remember my first week with the band, or this, 1 or 2 weeks with the band, and I'm standing next to Rolf, and we're playing through a piece, and he puts down his horn, and he said, "Can you do something with that phrase?" I don't care what you do, just do something. I was like, okay, just let it rip. Let's see what happens. But it was like, the thing
I'll kick my third slide out a little bit. Maybe that'll fix it.
It's like, okay, I got the message that, maybe I'm boring. Maybe I'm boring people. And to some extent, some guys would say, hey, you know what? I'm walking out. But to me, it got me thinking, is it possible that I'm a boring trumpet player? And to some extent, I think I was. And I certainly wasn't like Rolf or, anyone else in the band for that matter. I was just walking around being a freelancer in New York City. And my job was not to get in the way and make sure I got hired again. Now, all of a sudden, I need to be a part of this group. I need to bring something to the table. And that's when I changed and decided that, okay, I've got ideas. I'm going to do this. And they might not be like everyone else's, but I'm going to sell a thought. I'm going to sell an intent. And so that is really important. It's all that music is. That's really what it is. And I tell these kids, you've got an iPhone full of tunes. And you listen to those tunes for a reason, because of the way they make you feel. So go out there on stage and make people feel something. Don't just make people say, oh, that was very nice. Make them feel something. And that's what music is all about.
I think that's just awesome. And I feel like we should talk about your cartooning as well, but I forgot to tell Andrew that Houchin Horns aims to spread the joy of music through providing the highest level of product, services, and resources to the brass playing community. I've been meaning to tell him.
This spot is making me feel something, actually, just like Jeff pleads with the children.
They have free domestic shipping on all new items, excluding sheet music, and free domestic returns on new instruments and mouthpieces when you order online at houchinhorns.com. They stock the finest makes of brass instruments, including Bach and Conselmer, Eastman and Shires, Engelbert Schmidt, Paxman, Tyne, and Yamaha, among many others. They do repairs and customizations in-house. They have free equipment consultations, in-person or virtual, available with their team of professional musicians. You can schedule yours at houchinhorns.com. You can watch over 200 unique videos on Houchin Horns' YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Houchin Horns. And if you enter the promo code Junkies at online checkout, you receive 10% off your purchase from houchinhorns.com. Some limitations apply.
I don't think Curnow didn't write any of that down. He's phoning this in, man. He's like, I look up to this guy. He was on my wall. Did I mention he was on my wall when I was a little kid? That
he has a phonographic memory.
So,
that's right.
Jeff, you will be happy to know that, this was maybe 10 years ago when I was playing in Mexico with Marty Hackelman, and I was we were in Texcoco and with Jim Thompson and Fred Mills, and it was like this amazing. We did the BAME. It was amazing. The reason I bring up the story is because we had this dinner where we were the mayor was like giving a toast, and it was like this, like all the important people in town were there, and we each had to give a speech, and we would say something and then it would get translated, and I mentioned that like what an honor it was to play with Marty. This is the first time I played with him because I looked up to him as a kid. And then I paused, and then they were translating. I look over at Marty, and Marty's kind of giving me this look like, you better not dig too deep here on how much older I am than you. And so like, and I was like, oh, like, and I'm just standing there. And then I said, because when I was a little boy, I had a poster of Marty up on my wall, and then they translated that, and then Marty's like, give me like, and then Jens, who was the other guy, who's like, Jens is getting all excited, and then I went back to that well like 5 times in a row as the rest of the band was like falling out of their chairs, and Marty was just sitting there because he couldn't get mad because I was like heaping praise on him, yet the whole time every one of them had a reference to how much older he is than me, and it was spectacular. So, anyway,
Marty.
Your cartoons. How did you get started? Your cartoons are brilliant. Like
thank you.
You're not supposed to be this good at multiple things. It's actually kind of off-putting, if I'm being frank. But how did you get started as a cartoonist?
I've been cartooning my whole life. I had some cousins who were also good at drawing, and we would put comic books together, and we'd get together and draw, and we were all kind of into the same thing. But I never really took it seriously until I joined the EBQ, until I joined Empire. And then I was sitting on the road and in hotel rooms and on airplanes, and I started doodling again. And I took, at that time it was like I had rapidograph pens and leaking ink all over the place, and, pads of paper, but I would do cartoons with a group, which I can't show you. Because they're all R-rated.
You read my mind. Like,
there's some hilarious cartoons. Marty actually has copies of some.
I'll get some out of him then. I'll do an end around on you, Curnow. I'm going to see those.
But when I was doing that, I was just learning how to put that together and put thoughts together as cartooning, and then I started doing cartoons for the Berkshire Eagle, which was the local paper in Pittsfield, because I was living up there, and I'd be up there for months at a time, and I would just send in political cartoons. And some of them got published. One actually in the big spot at the top of the editorial page, which was nice. I never knew you
did that. That's wild.
Yeah, I was really into political cartoons, and I did quite a bit for that paper, but most of them got rejected, but I did get a few in there.
My parents, every day in the summer, my parents still get that newspaper. It is a virtual certainty that I saw one of your cartoons and had no idea that it was yours. Like a virtual certainty. That's really wild.
The editor there was very nice, and he was really into it that I was in town putting these things together. So he would call me and say, hey, we got something going on here. Can you put a cartoon together? And they were very nice about putting it in there. And it was kind of nice having a local guy doing the cartooning. And then I kind of put it away for a while when I left, and I joined Dallas, and my main focus was like trying to make that transition from brass quintet to symphony orchestra. I still doodled a bit, but it was, wasn't like I'm certainly doing now. When I got here, when I got to Philly, I decided I had time to do a little bit of that again. And I started doing animation. I started putting together these blackjack cartoons, these animation. I was really interested in that because the software now is on your computer. You can get really terrific animation software. And I was like, wow, this is great. I can put together a cartoon, a movie, like a animated cartoon in a pretty short amount of time. And that was fun, but it was a lot of work. And then I started screwing around with all the digital cartooning, just drawing digitally and putting cartoons together that way, which is a little bit of an adjustment from the animation software. And then I got an iPad, and this thing is like crazy great because I can literally do cartooning like I'm sitting on a pad and paper, and I can put them together relatively quickly, color them, push a button, and send it to NPR. So I started doing that kind of thing and sending out and putting cartoons online. Yolanda Condonasis, terrific harp player, the wife of Mike Sachs, was a huge fan she loved my cartoons. She saw them, called this guy, Tom Huizinga at NPR, the NPR Classical Facebook page, and said, you got to check out this guy's cartoons. You should be working together. And so we kind of got in touch, and Tom said, well, I mean, what do you want to do, one a month? I said, let's go for one a week. He said, all right, let's do that. And so I wanted that pressure. I wanted to see if I could, because the most difficult part of cartooning is writing them, coming up with the ideas. So that, the rest is history. I would send a cartoon in and I'd work with him. Well, we kind of like this. We don't like this at NPR. You can use this. You can infer to this, but you can't infer to that. And there was a lot of, we want to work this into the cartooning. There's a lot of adjustments to be made from that standpoint. But once I understood what they were looking for, I could, I just started thinking that way. And now I'm sending cartoons to the Wall Street Journal, which is nice. I've sold a few to them. It has nothing to do with music, which is kind of cool. So that's, long story long.
Oh,
that's kind of the way it took off. So it's really so much fun. And I find myself comparing it to music a lot, how detailed oriented I am with the cartooning in my art style. And some of these New Yorker cartoonists will just scribble something down and it looks terrific. And it's quick and it's just very, off the cuff. It looks very off the cuff. I can't do that. I got to sit there and do this classical music thing where I have to make sure the instruments look right because somebody will write, "That's not a French horn. I didn't realize the viola was as big as the violin." It's like, oh, okay. So you go through that kind of thing, and you have to put together that anatomically correct everything, and so it makes for a But that's kind of the way I am because I'm a classical musician, so I take things apart, and I'm still detail oriented, but I'm noticing a lot of similarities.
So how big of a file of how far ahead do you work, I guess I would say, or do you have a place that you keep all this might be a thing, that could be a thing, or what's your process like?
I sometimes I just got to sit down and think of ideas. I try to stay a month out in front with NPR because sometimes I'll send them something and it takes the rewording, or he'll say, "Well, this isn't really going to work. Can you do it another way?" Some people might find this offensive, I always kind of stick my neck out first because that's kind of, I like to be a little bit of controversial. They are not crazy about that, so there's a compromise there. So I like to say about,
Rolf told you to have an opinion in that phrase,
right? And you have to have an opinion as a cartoonist. You have to, or nobody can relate to it. I mean, you've got to relay some kind of message. Yeah. But if I'm good, I wanted to do 10 Wall Street Journal cartoons at the beginning of January. So you have to sit down and spend time daydreaming. That's really what it's all about. You got to walk around and think of funny things and try to get inspired and look at the paper and learn from other cartoonists and draw from that. And when it comes to classical music, I just put together a classical music cartoon. It's Black History Month next month. So you want to include the African-American community in this set of cartoons and to kick something off with that. NPR likes that. And it's good to do anyway. But then you have to come up with something funny about that, tie in masks with it. And so I have a cartoon involves masks, singers, and that kind of whole combination. And you put it together. But I have to literally, a lot of it is like when I sit on stage counting measures rest, that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking about cartooning. I'm thinking about another cartoon to do. And that's really, like I said, most of the time is not drawing, it's thinking, coming up with the ideas. And I find it challenging. I mean, to do it every week, to come up with something funny about the music business every week is really a challenge because you can't do something that you've done before.
Right.
So it's, but I'm kind of fascinated by it. I like the fact that they're mine. It's not Ravel's, it's not Beethoven's, it's not Bruckner's, it's mine. It's all mine. It all comes out of my head and I can put this thing together and do everything that I want to do with a cartoon without having to, take instructions from, Beethoven or, Vivaldi or whatever, this is kind of my thing. So I like that.
And then how did the collaboration with Gould come about with the guy to the orchestra?
He called me up and he said, "We got to do something together because I'm thinking of writing a book." And he said, "But I don't know how this is all going to come together, but it'd be fun if you could put some cartoons with it. I'm going to send you. He sent me a first draft, and it was brilliant.
It's so funny.
And I didn't know what to expect because Mark, I studied with Mark. I was scared to death that it was going to be like one of these things like, Mark, this kind of sucks. I don't know what to tell you. How am I going to tell him if it's not good?
Jeffrey Curnow, are you implying that Mark Gould doesn't have a filter? Are you really going on the record as saying Mark Gould doesn't have a filter?
I love Mark, and I try, and at times he would put these. I said, "Look, this is great. This is really great. I want you to think of everything and throw it at the wall and see what sticks." And then what I wanted to do was try to focus him into something. So he came up here one time and we sat around the table and just really let it rip and went totally out there with it. And then you draw it back a little bit, pull it in. How can we make this funny without, really pissing off as many people as we possibly can? Let's just, be a little subtler with this. And so, but it was mostly, it was mostly him. But putting together cartoons, I would send him the cartoons and say, what do you think about this? And of course he would say, no, I want more blood in it. I want you to, have this guy's head come off. I'm like, well, that kind of thing. It was really fun. It was fun working with him. And I'm glad I got to I'm glad I got to see him put something into print because he's a brilliant writer, and I hope he does it again. He's come out with another book.
Yeah,
that's not funny, but it's really a great.
Good.
It's really a great essay of his feelings about the music business, and I'm glad he did that. I hope he comes out with something else funny. I was trying to sell him an idea. There's a young person's guide to the orchestra. And the Benjamin Britten theme and everything. I said, I want an adult's guide to the orchestra and do something on that line. And you can narrate it and we can talk. It's like watching, a reality TV show and give all the dirt with what's going on in the sections, which happens in orchestras, but that the flute player is doing this with the principal, percussionist, and this is happening. I said, just spin that a little bit, see what we can, and then we'll come up. Maybe we can use the Benjamin Britten's theme and twist it around a little bit and make it kooky. And I don't know that that's ever going to be in the works, but I thought it was a funny idea, and we're sometimes conversing that way. Every once in a while he'll call me up and say, I have an idea about something. But getting it, putting it together and talking about it are two different things, because you can talk about it, it's fun, and you laugh about it. But when it comes to writing it, putting into work, it takes a lot of time and energy, and you really got to be dedicated to the project.
If any of you have not seen any of Jeff's cartoons, go check them out. All the links are in the show notes as always. It's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and yeah, it's everywhere. But there's I just Google searched real fast, and some that I've been laughing at for a while, like three dudes holding trombones at Nick's bar, and there's a sign that's taped up on the door that's got the crossed out Ghostbusters sign over a trombone. At the bottom it says, it's getting so a guy can't buy a drink in this town. It's just
that
ridiculous.
That happened. And that fell out of the sky, because when I was in the Empire Brass, we were at the Royal Academy of Music. We were artists in residence, and we would go down the street from the Royal Academy of Music, and there was a pub, and on the window of that pub there was a trombone with a line, and they did not allow trombonists into the pub because they trashed the place. And so that came, I was like, I got to put that in a cartoon at some point, but that actually happened. That was real. No trombonists allowed in the pub.
We might have been, we might have, or there might have been a quintet who was partying with a trombone player in Glasgow at one point, who we went to a casino with, and he somehow got in at 2:30 in the morning, and then once we got through the doors, he was elated because he said that 2 weeks earlier he had been banned for life, but they apparently had changed their mind.
I forgot about that guy.
I was like, do I want to know what I'm not sure. I might want to know this story, and I might be better off not knowing the story. So,
I forgot all about that kid.
The Brits are so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
They made to hang out with those kids. Eric was playing a Paxman at the time, and he said, "Come on, we're going to go out with the Paxman boys." And we go to a pub with these guys, and they were hilarious, and they could drink up a storm. And then we got back after this hang. It went till like 2 or 3 in the morning. They finally kicked us out of the pub. And I was rooming with Eric, and he shoots out of bed in the morning. He sits up, he goes, "Oh my God, where's my horn?" He left it in the pub. And we're getting on a plane at 11. It's
Love
like
it.
8, and he's got to get to this pub and find somebody to open it and get his horn. So, yeah. God. That was the road, man. That was fun. It was fun rooming with him, man.
That is the road.
One of the times we were there were 2 guys who were, I think they owned a music store. They were dealers for, I can't remember, but they were
our handlers for like a week.
And the first night we go out and howl at the moon. The next night we go out and howl at the moon. The third night we meet in the lobby, and the guys are like, "You guys go on ahead. We can't hang with you guys anymore." We're like, "Ah!" We did it.
There was like, everybody went through phases of like being like first and goal at the 2-yard line or not, but that was like that period of time. Everybody was first and goal. All 5 of us. It was not good. There was no governor on. There was no voice of reason within the band at all. That was a short-lived but glorious phase for Boston Brass. Yeah, that was like 2008. Was just like just shooting in every possible direction. So, on that note, stay in school, kids, and don't
get
do
a haircut.
drugs.
That's right.
Yep, and get a haircut. We are going to. This has been wonderful. You are always. This was worth scheduling all 5 of the Zoom calls that we had to go through to get you on here. And you're a gem. Thank you for all that you did for me. All those decades ago at Tanglewood. And my closing remark is this: that I remember. Individually, I remember you, and I remember Scott, and obviously Sam and Eric, and even Rolf to some extent. Just like they, I was 14 and 15 in those 2 summers, and like you treated me like I was a musician, just like you were. You were just older, and you were better at your horn, and you were more experienced, and like you were in Empire Brass, and I was just like a kid from the suburbs of Boston, going back to the suburbs of Boston. But like, yeah, you treated us all like adults, and that also let you demand a lot from us as well, but it was like the hangs were never patronizing. It was just like, I felt like I was a part of, much more than I felt different than you, which was maybe the biggest gift of all. So that's something that has stuck with me, and I've tried to bring to my own teaching whenever I can. But yeah, so thank you very much for all of that.
Well,
And,
I would like to say that I am very proud of you. I'm very proud of what I was able to do with this group. But mostly, every time I hear the Boston Brass, I am blown away. I'm not kidding. Your band has kept that tradition going, the Empire Brass tradition going, for years and years. And every time I hear it, it's like, wow, that group is rocking and rolling. And I commend you for doing it for as long as you have, and to keep going, keep barreling away, and keep just burning down the town every time you move in, and because that's what it's all about. Going out there and just charging up an audience and getting people talking about brass quintet playing. That's what you're doing. So it's been a pleasure to be here with you guys. I love talking shop with you cats. And,
yeah,
as Sam would say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Sammy
man.
from Miami.
All right, here's what we're gonna do.
Why did you put trumpets in a brass quintet? All right, so we are going to have Mr. Jeffrey Curnow stick around for the bonus episode, which if you are a Patreon patron, you can instantly get bonus episodes with Mark Gould, with a whole long list of people that have been mentioned just on today's episode. You can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. Help us to keep the lights on around here, and get a whole bunch of access to bonus content. And I think that is it. Lance, I thought you did a really good job. You stayed focused for the most part. I like to. Arnold Jacobs always used to say, "Catch yourself doing something right," but sometimes I have to do that for Lance. So I thought you did pretty well here. So yeah, you didn't embarrass me at all. But I haven't hit stop yet, so I probably shouldn't be saying that out loud. That is going to do it for another episode of Last Chance Lance, the Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.